And we're live. Cristina, Adriana, hello. Thank you once again for being on the Cove with us. Take a second and introduce yourselves to the public, please.
My name is Cristina Rodriguez. I am a local artist. I am very happy to be here. Thank you for
A very
having
talented local artist. Very, very talented local artist.
Well, thank you, Damasa, for having us. I'm Adriana Vergara. I'm an art dealer, and I represent Cristina Rodriguez here in Miami.
Thank you once again for being on. And so let's jump right into this. Give us a little background, Cristina. Let us know, where you're from, where your family's from, what kind of heritage you have, your background, and how you fell in love with art, and how you fell in love with the style of art that you create.
Well, let's see. I grew up in Miami. I actually grew up in Miami Lakes, not far from here in Hialeah. And my dad is from Cuba. My mom is from Hawaii. And one thing my parents really had in common was really just a real appreciation for nature. And I think that respect and love for the landscape here I had even growing up. And for me, I'm a mom now of two girls, and I see them, I'm like, try to find your passion, think what you want to do, be open, there's time. But when I think back actually to me as a kid, ever since I remember, I always wanted to be an artist. I was really focused on just making every possible arts and crafts projects, always, starting at like 5. And later I studied in college and then went back to get my master's. And my work for a long time, really, especially since graduate school, has really focused on thinking about the natural landscape, but interpreting it with sort of man-made, industrial, artificial materials. And for me, that is a way that I think really reflects the actual landscape that we live in, especially living in an urban context, in an urban place. In Miami, the same as in Cuba and Hawaii, palm trees aren't even always native, even though we think of them as part of our landscape. So that fantasy that we put on to where we live and our landscape and the way the city's built really inspires my work.
And if you had any advice for an artist right now that's at the turning point in their life, pretty much, I know myself as an artist, I've been there at one point or another, where you're about to sacrifice your love and your passion for survival. What would be your advice to that person?
Oh, there's really my advice would be, there's not just one way to do things, and I think that the most important is to try to keep your passion, even if sometimes there are things that you're making for yourself to keep your passion going, and sometimes you're able to do it in a more public way as a job. There's always ups and downs, and I think to be an artist is really, it's always a challenge. And so I think that really the most important thing is to try to keep your relationship with the way you express yourself through what you make. Just to kind of keep your soul being fed.
Yeah, that self-awareness is very important.
So,
a lot of people struggling with it nowadays too.
I think otherwise if you feel, it just makes you feel sad inside in a way. If you have something you need to express and you're not getting it out there. So I think at least if you can keep it going in a way that keeps it close to your heart, I think that.
Well, I also feel like for artists, like every career, like you have to follow a path. So you have to keep going and never lose. It's like you can't think you're going to be an artist and within the first year, boom, you're going to be the best artist recognized worldwide. You have to follow the path and keep working on your career to keep showing the passion and work.
And it just yesterday I was watching on 60 Minutes, there was a segment on an artist named Mark Bradford, and he's an artist I really admire his work. They were showing a piece that I think sold for like $40 million. It was a huge piece that he made for a museum in Los Angeles. And he was saying that he sold his first piece in his 40s. And he was working as a hairdresser in his mom's salon. And he's such an iconic artist that so many people are inspired by. But I think that it just really made me think too about how
It's just
really
timing,
not,
I guess. Yeah.
it's just, there's not just one way or one path. But I do think there is a step about when you're ready and feel like you have something to share. It does take practice to share. And there's part of being an artist that is actually means having a public role. And sometimes those two, you think about
They
like,
clash. Don't
yeah, they don't
Yeah,
really.
they
You think
do.
of just like
They
making
do.
art and you're so by yourself, but then there's another part of it. You're like, oh no, I actually want to engage someone, and that means sometimes someone might be like, what is that?
Do you get a lot of engagement through your social media?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Especially to people who are close to me who follow, and just want to have a conversation about what's going on in Miami. The Miami art community overall, there's a group of people who I think have been working for a long time that I've worked alongside them, and our careers have grown, and now it's been a long time. And so I think also in social media, it's for that community as well. Just sharing with the people who are local, and just when you see them being like, oh, I like that project you did, or
Yeah.
a lot of people have been telling me, oh, that project at UM, the one that we did with you guys, that a lot of people have been mentioning it to me, and they saw it on social media, so that's great.
And as an art dealer, I'm sure you deal with other artists other than Cristina.
Well, Cristina is the only artist that I fully represent.
Oh, because I was going to say,
I do a
what
lot
makes
of
her
advising.
Right
special?
now. Right now.
Well, she is a special one. Like, I've been working in the artwork for a long time, and I used to run a gallery where I had more than 20 artists. And to keep an artist through, like, make happen the career takes a lot of work. Right now, I don't have a physical space, and I believe I treat them like my kid, like artists for me become everything.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time and I put all my energy. So at this point of my life, I think with Cristina, like I'm putting all the energy.
That's nice. That's super nice to
and
see.
it's part of the formula that we have formulated to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys have really good chemistry too.
Yeah.
And very good energy here. You're always smiling and always happy.
Well, we've known each other for a long time.
Actually, how she mentioned before, like with Miami, it's been like a while, like this group of people, and we met in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Adriana was working at the Rubel collection, which is a big prominent art collection in Miami. The Rubels own a lot of different work. They probably specialize from work from the 70s to today. And when Adriana was working there were a couple of other people who are still our close friends were also interning there. So it just kind of goes to show, like, sometimes you find yourself with people, but then over time you look back and everyone's kind of grown together, and you can look back and you're like, cumulatively, we've worked in the art world for a long time. We know each other, and they're people you can trust, and which is a nice thing about us working together now.
Yeah,
We've
that's
known each other
nice.
for a long
Trust
time.
is a
And we
very
have seen,
important part of
especially in a
the...
city like Miami, how it has changed.
Yeah, and there's been so many ups
there's
and
one thing,
downs
like,
and
The
things.
city itself, and then the other side is the art world. In general terms, has changed so much. So we have been going through together with it.
And art has taken a turn for the better, I'd say, within the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, our
It's-
city's really changed.
It's okay to be an artist nowadays. Like, it's respected to be an artist nowadays almost as back 20 years ago. If you weren't sitting in a cubicle in front of a
Exactly.
computer doing desktop work, you were just lazy. That's something I struggled through my whole high school and college years.
I think there's been a lot of blurring of genre discipline, which has been a really good thing. So I felt like when I was growing up, there was a lot of pressure about being a fine artist in comparison to being someone who was a crafts person or someone who did something that was in the arts but not a fine artist. That was a really clear line. I don't think that really exists in that same way anymore.
That kind of takes away from art, though, doesn't it? I mean,
Yes
just
and no, though.
being a fine artist kind of takes away from all the other creativities that can come along with that. I enjoy mixed media more than anything else, I think. I enjoyed your project so much because it was handmade. It wasn't actually painted with a brush. You physically made it with your hands. I thought that had a higher merit almost, you know. At least I enjoyed it a little more.
Thanks. I mean, I think for me, even though I work in a lot of different mediums, I really am sort of at my core a sculptor, and I need to make things with my hands just in general to understand them. So there was a couple of, now it's been a while, maybe like 10 years ago, I was really thinking a lot about how can I make a 2D image that feels true to my work. And so I just playing around started using the scanner as a way of being able to find a compromise with working with my hands and thinking about objects as a way of making art, that I, use the scanner as a way to lay them down, and then I could build the image onto the scanner and create an image. It was basically taking a high-res photograph. And that image, I also realized I could capture at a very high resolution because the objects were still. They were just sitting there, so the scanner actually can take a really clear photograph. So that's been a way for me that my 3D brain can make a 2D image. And for this project that we just finished at University of Miami called Royal Poinciana, it's called a micro and macro study. And it's a way that I was able to play with this same idea of having actual objects, which in this case was the leaves and flowers of the Poinciana tree, and just really trying to analyze it and think about images in all these different ways, from just throwing everything on there to stripping off the leaves, to trying to play with a gradient, to picking out only certain leaves or certain petals and making a lot of images. And then once I have a whole palette of different images that I had made, then I can pick through them to create what I think will look best for an installation. So the project that we did together at UM is a good example of how I basically am able to use my 3D brain to create a 2D image and then put it back into what becomes an actual experience for the viewer. So,
and now that we're speaking about the actual project, how did you go about pitching it to the university?
In this case, University of Miami came to me, and one thing that was really nice about this project, which is unusual, is the speed of which this project happened. Usually,
they were very clear.
Yeah,
what they wanted.
They did. They were really clear.
Yes.
That's actually unusual.
Yeah, it's very unusual.
So everything worked super fast and very smooth. And since they were so clear, it was very clear for us what was the next step.
Wow.
Yeah.
They happened really quick.
Yeah,
they had a deadline. They had everything scheduled. So.
And they even said, we looked at your website and we looked through a lot of the images you have here, and we're really attracted to this Poinciana image that you have. And I had done a couple scans of the flower and the leaves of the Poinciana before. And from there, they said, of course, we don't want to, if you have a different idea, that's okay. We don't want to harsh on your, they were kind of like,
of your art.
Yeah, they were like,
That's
think
nice.
about what you want to do as an idea. And I was like, okay, do you want me to make you a proposal? And they were like, no, you're hired. Just keep going with this and let's see what the next round is. We want it to be done in like 2 months. So I'm like, okay, that's definitely not how projects usually happen. So, I think since they already were so clear about what they wanted, for me, I just delved into that concept and palette and the idea even further. And they have that tree alongside the canal where the project runs, and it just made a lot of sense once I was there on site as well. So sometimes sometimes for all creative people, you get your idea really quickly, and sometimes you're like on your 10th coffee after a weekend trying to get out your idea.
And then meeting after meeting with clients until they decide. And they go through different paths and they don't decide.
I know, this is our usual. And they're like, actually, let's go back to the beginning. Let's try it again.
And then there's someone that is, but I was thinking about this. And the other person said, but I had this in mind. So there's a lot of ideas, and projects usually take longer to come out to the final result. But in this case, it was like a fantastic project to work.
Yeah. And I think also
not only
because
with the client, but with you.
Oh, but you
Yeah.
guys were really, really easy to work with.
Because everyone was very clear.
yeah, I think it helped. Also, it helps, you know, it helps when the client says, basically, we're trusting you.
Right.
You know, just come up with what you think
Right.
and let's go for it. I mean, it makes it
Well, that's
so
exactly
much
the
easier.
feeling I had with you when you walked in and you gave me the files, and I'm like, I promise I'll match the colors, and you were like, I trust you, just deal with it. It makes it so much easier. It does make it so much
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah, and it makes things. It sometimes gives actually the creative project the space to really become all it can
Yeah.
be.
Then your
Because-
communication was on point too. It's not like you guys were really hard to get a
Yeah.
hold of either,
Yeah,
which is
no,
nice because then you have questions and they need to be answered in order to keep production moving smoothly.
Yeah,
But I had a very fun time.
Yeah,
Very,
it was
very
really
fun time.
And you really read our minds. And
yeah.
yeah, everything worked out.
So what's next for Cristina?
For me, well, I have some ongoing projects. I have a book project that I worked on that was published last year that is in a collector's edition, and I make each sculpture to order. And the book covers the last 15 years of my career, and I have that ongoing. And the book project has been really successful. I had one of my books actually went into the Met in New York, which is really an honor.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Very sweet.
And aside from that, other ongoing projects I have near where I live now, which for me is really exciting. They're building a cultural arts center in Tropical Park,
Okay.
and it is going to have a theater and all these new buildings and be basically a cultural campus within Tropical Park. So I won a commission to do a 30 by 70 foot tile mural with one of my images. That project's a really long, kind of slow moving. Anything in the city is the
hand-painting each
opposite of
tile?
what we're talking about, huh?
Are you hand painting each tile?
No.
No,
Oh.
it's actually done with. The project came with a vendor that does.
Dye sublimated.
They do like basically what is like it's like what is a Bazaza type of mural where basically the computer makes the values of your image into the values that they have of the tile.
So
and
it's in the tile itself.
and
Exactly.
it lays it out as little squares. So each pixel is like this shade of orange that they know they have, and then they translate it and make it into
Gotcha.
it's like a computerized way of doing a giant mosaic.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. Even though there's a part of that project that Cristina is gonna make
Yeah, when I do
Handmade.
the
handmade some of the tiles to give a little bit more
A personal
head of the
touch.
artist. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to what you're saying. Like, how do you find that way of? I think sometimes for art, we wanted to, have that hand touch,
To physically represent the artist. Yeah.
even though it's may also take advantage of technology, which takes away that hand. So it's like, how do you find that balance? So I'm trying to find the same thing with that project.
Very cool. I would
Um,
look forward to seeing that.
Me too.
Yeah.
No, it'll happen. It'll just be slow. It's a slow project.
Yeah.
So, and then I always have like some site-specific commissions or projects. I really like site-specific commissions, like the one we did for because it's an opportunity to like take into account a lot of things that I think make an artwork better. Like thinking about the location and who goes there, what's the function, what is it like during the day, what is it like during the night, what happens there, and how to tie that into the work. So
Right. Well, this video is going to go up on YouTube. I'll have all your links at the end of the video for everybody to see, but now's the time to plug yourself, and that phone is live. So give everybody your Instagram handle on your website so they can check you out.
CristinaLayRodriguez.com, Cristina Lay Rodriguez on Instagram, and it really was an honor to work with Printers Cove and have a project that came out
thank
so
you,
perfect.
Dan.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
very
much to make Christina's work possible.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you once again for coming and sitting down and chatting with me.
Okay, thank you
All right.
for inviting us.
Peace.